Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the podcast. I am delighted to have you here with me. My name is Amy Diamond. Thank you so much for tuning in today. All right, so today we're going to talk about long-term financial scarcity and or long-term financial struggle. So if you tuned in last week and you saw my video on under earning, hopefully that resonated with you. If you haven't yet, go check it out after you finish watching this video. But what I want to talk about today is what happens when we have had extended periods of financial struggle and or financial scarcity. So let me color this in for you first so that you understand what I'm saying, because I think that it's very easy to say, well, I've been without a job for a couple of months and for the first time in my life, I'm not having the money that I need to pay my bills. So that is obviously financial struggle, financial scarcity, but if never before in your life have you had that issue, then this may not hit quite the same. So I'm talking someone who you've been on your own for a while, whatever that looks like, you're an adult of some variety. That was a weird way of saying that. And you've had like a year, 2, 10, 20 years of some ups and downs. You've had some moments where you're making enough money to cover everything, maybe even more money than you need, and you've been able to put some money in savings and investments, but you seem to return somewhat consistently to a state where you are bringing in on a consistent level less than what you need financially. I do want to clarify one small piece here. Let's say that you're earning, $500,000 a year, okay? And you are still in financial scarcity. That what we're going to talk about today might not quite resonate with you, because that kind of financial scarcity where you're still struggling for dollars and you're barely living paycheck to paycheck, even when you're making $500,000 a year, is a slightly different set of impact and beliefs than what we're going to talk about today. Doesn't mean that you should click away, because it's still going to be really great, but I just want to give a little bit of clarity on that. So I'm talking about, we are, highly trained professionals, or we have a lot of experience in whatever it is, or we keep staying in jobs that are barely making minimum wage or maybe just above. Generally speaking, your income is going to be, I'm going to just give a completely random number and say less than $75,000 a year. Okay. You might be just getting your bills paid, but it's just, and if something goes sideways, you're fucked. All right. So with that clarity in mind, this is what I want to actually talk about today. I was closing Instagram a couple weeks ago, and as I was closing it, there was this post that showed up on the screen as I'm swiping to close the app, and all I saw was broke at 23, millionaire at 25. I closed the app. I carried on doing whatever it was that I was doing, but these 4 little words or 6 words just kept sort of ruminating in my brain. And this is the clarity that came through. We have lots of people in the world today who have become millionaires and multimillionaires before the age of 30, before 35, right? There's always the 30 under 30, the 40 under 40, the whatever. These stories are really inspiring, and they certainly can motivate us into taking some pretty critical action that is needed. We might be investing in programs. We might be just shifting our beliefs. We might be shifting our beliefs. It's giving us insight as to what's possible in the world. But what stood out to me as I was thinking about this, broke at 23, millionaire at 25, was, so I'm 42 and I've never been a millionaire. Okay, 42 and have yet to make 6 figures in a year. 42 and have more time in my life where I have struggled to feel good about paying my bills, meaning there is a constant stretching of dollars to make everything work, a constant measuring everything against What are the financial resources that I have? And is it possible to do whatever this thing is? Instead of being in a place where there's like robust money all around me, robust resources that can serve me, that I can build teams with, that I can do all kinds of things with. And what stood out to me was there is a missing link when we are following people who are teaching us about, so here's how I did it, here's how we need to just be like delusional in our beliefs and in our thinking in order to get us to the dream life that we know is possible for us. Because I'm going to do my very best to make sure that this like whole video makes sense, because it feels like it's a little all over the place, and that's partly because I'm trying to give you insight as to how the thoughts came together. When you've had extended periods of financial struggle, so let me give you some examples. Like most, I didn't grow up with a ton of money, but we always had a home. We always had food on the table. We had what we needed, like clothes and equipment for like, I don't know, sports or whatever else. Like we weren't living large, but we had what we were needed. But all I remember growing up was like how hard money was and how in short supply it was constantly. When I became an adult, that carried on. I remember I got my first credit card at 18, had no idea how to actually handle it, and was making so little. I was so like stupidly underpaid, even though my rent was like, I think it was like $300, which now is like, oh my God, that's so cute. It was $300, but like barely getting by with anything, right? When I went to university, I had a hugely expensive program comparative to other programs that existed. I was working a part-time job. I had student loans, but my program had constant needs for modeling materials and tools and like all kinds of things. And there was a time that I could not afford milk. I had no money left. I was out. So my fridge was empty. I just ate whatever was left in my cupboards until my next paycheck came in from my job and I could buy a little bit of groceries. I've gone through times where like, thankfully I've never had to make the decision between do I pay my rent or do I pay my utility bill, right? But it's been damn close, and I've been late on bills because there hasn't been enough to go around. I've made decisions of, do I invest in this program or do I not? Do I go on this ski trip or do I go to this wedding or do I not? And more often than not, it's been no, because the financial resources aren't there. So these are just a couple of examples of what it means to make decisions based on the lack of financial resources that we have. Coming back to our main topic, the extended exposure of having an experience of financial struggle and scarcity, I suspect, the research is still proving this out, okay? But I suspect has a detrimental impact on us when we are doing the belief work to shift what we believe to be true, what we are willing to put our faith behind, and our ability to trust that our desires are coming in, especially when they're related with money. So I've invested in lots of programs, lots of manifestation programs and money programs and coaching programs and business programs, and like, it's kind of crazy pants actually how much I've invested in, but I've learned a ton and it's all influencing my work now. And one of the things that I've always, no matter what I was invested in, no matter how diligently I did the work, no matter how dedicated and committed I was to the program, the thing that I could never seem to quite figure out was, why is all of this work not translating into the money that I desire to have in my life? And then when someone would say, Amy, you just need to be like delusional in your belief of like, just believe against all odds and stop engaging with like looking at the present and like worrying about how to pay your bills. Just pay your bills in gratitude. And it wasn't that I wasn't doing the things, but I could never fully disconnect from the sense of concern that well, fuck, if something doesn't change, then I'm not going to be able to pay my bills in a month, 6 months, 2 years, right? Whatever that looks like. Usually not 2 years. Generally, we're not thinking that far ahead unless we're thinking about like college or university tuitions and things. What I am really seeing proving out in the research now is that when have been in this extended experience of financial struggle and scarcity, it feels much more challenging to truly hook into beliefs that say the money that you want is completely possible for you. It's possible for you like sometime in this lifetime. It's not just a pipe dream. And it can come through the work that you're doing. It doesn't need to be a saving grace kind of moment, like a lottery win or an inheritance or some kind of like other kind of profound gift or win. When we are struggling financially and we've been going through it for a long time, we develop senses, beliefs, habits, ways of reacting and responding to certain situations and triggers that are influenced and informed by the fact that we've had such financial scarcity. I'm going to color it in with an example that I hope is going to make it really clear for you. You and I, very likely, did not live through the dirty 30s. Okay? Good chance that there's very few people still on the planet who lived through the dirty 30s. But the dirty 30s was a period of extreme financial scarcity. People were committing suicide. People died from starvation. There's like, we've all seen the pictures of, people lined up down the block, hoping to get some work for the day, hoping to get some food for the day. The dirty 30s was a very large spread moment of extreme scarcity. People who survived the dirty 30s, but went through that extreme scarcity, were forever altered. And 10, 20, 30, 40 years later, even when they had robust financial resources, even when they had, homes that were safe and lots of food in the fridge and more than enough money in the bank and everything that they needed, they still engaged in these old habits and patterns caused by the fears and the beliefs that they built from living in the dirty 30s. Another example, World War II. Can't say as much about World War I because I don't have as much like understanding of it, but World War II, so my direct family, my grandparents lived through World War II. Okay. My family's from the Netherlands. Obviously Netherlands was an occupied country from very basically kind of the beginning of the war. The people who lived through the war, who survived. Now there's a whole bunch of different scenarios, but let's just say someone who was in an occupied country but like wasn't in a camp or like wasn't an actual like combat soldier, right? So just like a civilian person who lived through the war, they went through also, a good majority of them went through very long periods of extreme starvation, like extreme hunger, or very, very limited food resources, financial resources, issues of like safety and security, right? And we have seen them have these long-term impacts. So we've seen our grandparents do weird things that you're just like, what are you doing? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Where they just keep re-knitting the same pair of socks, even though they could like buy a new pair of socks and it actually would make much more sense than these socks that are being terrible for their feet, right? These behaviors, these responses were built out of this very extreme container that informed and influenced the entire rest of their life. The same thing happens when we have extended periods of financial struggle and financial scarcity. Before you hit the comments and you're like, what, you're saying that like struggling to pay my bills is the same thing as being afraid for my life? Listen, okay, like we don't need that kind of stuff here on the interwebs. Like, just come on. But what I am saying is when we go through these experiences where things are really scarce, we're really struggling. We can't just like we could bury our heads in the sand and just pretend it doesn't exist. But like in effect, we can't just pretend everything is fine and assume somehow it's all going to work out and it's going to be okay. We know we have a visceral, lived, deeply ingrained experience of struggling. That shifts how you do everything. Now, we go through a lot of belief work to alter this. There is a lot of, like, obviously, we've generated a number of beliefs that can absolutely be rewritten, reprogrammed to something more serving. But my question to you is, if you've been having an experience of extended financial scarcity and struggle, and you've been doing the belief work around your money, and it's not yet proving forward, as in like dollars aren't coming in, have you considered that perhaps the very fact that you've had this experience of extreme financial struggle and scarcity is the hurdle that's getting in the way? This has been really building massive clarity in my mind and in how I've been reviewing everything that I've learned from money teachers and life coaches and manifestation guides and business coaches. And I'm like, wait a minute. If this is what's going on, then it makes sense that no matter how much coaching I do, no matter how much journaling I do, no matter how many beliefs I shift, no matter how many affirmations I say, I could stand on my head and hold my breath for 1400 days and it still wouldn't make a difference, because there's this deeply ingrained experience that will forever be part of my life on earth, right? We can't just erase history, but I think we need to approach how we adjust it in a different way. And I'm going to be showing you exactly what that way is going to look like inside the Money Magic Workshop. Did you see how beautiful that segue was? At the end of the month, this month, July 2026, I'm going to be hosting a free live workshop called Money Magic. We are going to be diving into the topics of under-earning, and we're going to have a day dedicated to the experience of long-term financial scarcity and struggle, what that means, how it's impacting our ability to shift our money reality now, and what can we begin to do to actually move the needle on it. So the workshop is completely free. Sign up in the URL, the URL is in the show notes and on the screen here for you. The workshop itself is completely free. There is a VIP upgrade available for you, which, if the resources are available, I highly recommend that you join me inside the VIP group, because my VIP group gets, every day after the training, we go into a separate exclusive room where I come in and I sit down with you, or stand up, whatever you're doing, and we go over the day's content. You can ask me any questions that you have. We'll do some spotlight coaching. I give you a bit more clarity if something didn't quite land or you have questions, and we can actually start to unpack what's going on for you so that you can start to move forward. The VIPs also get extended rewatch time. So generally when I have my free workshop, you get about 7 days to rewatch the replays. But for those of you in my VIP group, you'll get 30 days to rewatch it. And then, this is one of my favorite parts of it, those of you in my VIP group will also get the Money Magic spell book. And the spell book is where the rubber meets the road. You're going to take what we're talking about and you're going to dive into it as it applies to your life. You're going to get much more clarity on, what is the current money spell that exists in your life, and what are the pieces, the ingredients, if you were, that need to be adjusted that will allow you to write a more lucrative, more abundant, more, money resources coming in kind of money spell for your life. So that's all included with the VIP upgrade. The VIP upgrade is $47. I've, again, tried to make it intentionally approachable for you, but if you can, I would really love to see you in the VIP group. Regardless, if you decide not to do VIP or you want to just check out the training for the first day or two for free, you absolutely can do so. All right. So join me on the free training. Like I said, the URL will be in the notes below, above, beside, however your current screen is formatted, wherever the notes are that are associated to this video, is the URL to sign up. So come join me inside the Money Magic Workshop, because I have been saying that this is a life-altering workshop, and part of me has been like, Amy, can you say that kind of thing? Like, that seems like a big promise. And yeah, I can, because I just know that what we're going to cover, what is going to be just like unveiled for you, is really going to create some powerful unlocks and some really, really life-changing awareness. It's going to give you some answers to some questions that you've had for a long time. So join me inside the workshop. I'd love to see you there. And until next week, do you remember Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod? I don't know if that only a Canadian thing, or was that like everywhere? I've been having this thing where I want to be like, keep fit and have fun. Oh, Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod. Throwback to a simpler time. Anyway, have a wonderful week. I will see you next week. Bye for now.